Welcome to XO, where science meets heart at the kitchen table. I'm your host, Davey. In each episode, I narrate B-side tracks curated around a single theme: the why behind the ingredients, the swaps that make it better, and the stories that have been simmering for generations. No interviews, no guests, just me and you. This is EP8, The Morning Show. Before we get into the kitchen, the powders, the proteins, the grains, the cup you build before the day starts, I need to tell you what this episode is really about. It's not about morning routines. It's about what you're actually asking your body to run on. Because once you understand what your morning drink is really doing and what it's not, the grade debate disappears and the cup gets better. Once you realize one purchase decision can branch into 5 different things your kitchen needs, you stop buying one thing and start building a system. Once you learn that the oat on the shelf furthest from the factory is the one working hardest in your body, the whole breakfast aisle makes sense. And once you stop treating coffee like a ritual to perform and start treating it like a food to build, your mid-morning changes completely. 4 tracks. One morning, let's wake up. Track 1, the anxiety economy of matcha. I bought an expensive tin of green powder and immediately felt like I was doing it wrong. The tin was beautiful. Matte black, Japanese text. The kind of packaging that makes you stand a little straighter at the checkout. Ceremonial grade. The good stuff. I got home, opened it, and Googled how to make matcha correctly. That was my first mistake. Within 10 minutes, I learned that I needed a bamboo whisk called a chasen, that the water had to be exactly 175 degrees Fahrenheit. Not boiling, never boiling, because boiling water scorches the leaves and you'll ruin everything. That I should whisk in a W motion, not a circle. That the foam on top should be fine and uniform, like microfoam on a latte. And if it wasn't, I had failed the ritual. I was stressed out before I took a single sip. The irony isn't lost on me. I bought matcha to feel calm. The process of making it correctly raised my blood pressure. Here's the thing about ceremonial grade. It's a marketing term more than a regulated standard. There's no global certification board. The label mostly means the leaves are younger, the color is brighter, and the flavor is smoother when you drink it straight with water. That's genuinely worth it when matcha is the only thing in the cup. But if you're blending it into a smoothie with banana and almond milk, or stirring it into oatmeal, or baking with it, you do not need the $38 tin. You need culinary grade, which is stronger, more bitter, and built to hold its own against other flavors. It's not lesser matcha. It's matcha with a different job. I spent months using the expensive stuff in lattes, where coconut milk and honey were doing most of the talking. That's like using high-end olive oil to deep fry. It works, but you're wasting what makes it special. Save the ceremonial for when the tea is the whole experience. Use culinary for everything else. Your wallet will thank you. I bought the bamboo chasen. I learned the W motion. I practiced. Some mornings it was meditative. A nice, quiet 2 minutes before the day started. Other mornings, the ones with early calls or a long to-do list already running in my head, the whisking felt like one more thing I was behind on. So one Tuesday, I just grabbed the small electric frother, hit the button for 15 seconds, and moved on with my life. The matcha tasted the same. The foam was fine, not Instagram fine, but drinkable, integrated, no clumps. The chasen didn't call me a traitor. The morning was better because I wasn't performing a ceremony I didn't have the bandwidth for. The point of a ritual is that it serves you. The moment it becomes a source of stress, it's not a ritual anymore. It's a chore. Here's what gets lost in all the grade anxiety and whisking discourse. Matcha is a genuinely remarkable ingredient. Unlike regular tea where you steep leaves and throw them away, with matcha you're consuming the whole leaf, ground to powder. Everything that was in that leaf is now in your cup. It's loaded with antioxidants. It has L-theanine, an amino acid that buffers caffeine, so you get alertness without the jittery spike and crash of coffee. It's the reason people describe matcha energy as calm focus. The caffeine wakes you up, the L-theanine keeps the edges smooth. But here's the part I wish someone had told me sooner. Pair it with a fat. Coconut milk, oat milk, a spoonful of cashew butter blended in. The fat slows the absorption, which stretches that calm alertness even longer. It also makes the drink taste richer, which means you don't need to add much sweetener. Matcha and fat are a team. The internet just forgot to mention it between the chastened tutorials and the grade debates. Most days, a teaspoon of culinary grade matcha, cold water, ice, shaken hard in a mason jar, takes 30 seconds, costs almost nothing per cup. Slow mornings, ceremonial grade, hot water at whatever temperature comes out of my kettle after it sits for a minute, whisked with the chasen because I feel like it. Not because I'm supposed to. Some mornings it goes into oatmeal. Some mornings it goes into a smoothie. Once I put it in pancake batter, and it turned the whole stack green, which was fun. The matcha doesn't care how it gets into your body. It just works when it gets there. Stop performing the tea. Start drinking it. Once you stop performing the ingredient and start asking what it can actually do, the whole kitchen opens up. And sometimes the best move starts not with what you have, but with what the store doesn't. Track 2, compounding interest. I had a specific problem. I wanted to make compound butter. The move restaurants make where a slice of herb butter lands on your steak and melts into it slowly while you watch. The steak is just the conduit. The butter is the point. But the butter I typically buy is cultured, French style, fermented, which means it's genuinely good for your gut. Not just good tasting, but doing real work in your body. I mind the gap. Gut health matters, and cultured butter is an easy win for the G. The store didn't have it. Not that day. So instead of driving somewhere else or settling for something that wasn't what I wanted, I stood there and asked myself a different question. How do you actually make butter? The challenge with making cultured butter at home is the culturing part. You need fermented cream. You need bacteria doing their work over time. You need, it sounds like, a project. And then it hit me. Crème fraîche is already cultured cream. That's literally what it is. Why not just make butter from crème fraîche? That one question changed the whole morning. I grabbed crème fraîche and quality heavy cream, came home, put them both in the KitchenAid with the whisk attachment, cold, straight from the fridge, and let it run. 1 minute, whipped cream. 5 more minutes, butter. The moment the butter solids separate from the liquid, you have 2 things at once. The butter you were making and fresh buttermilk as a byproduct. Just there, waiting. A gift with purchase. 1 move, 2 results. You already know how I feel about that. The color stopped me before I even tasted it. Store-bought butter, even the good stuff, is pale. This was golden, deep, rich, the kind of color that tells you something real is in there before a single bite. I knew before I tasted it that it was going to be different. I put it on toasted ciabatta and just stood there. The cultured tang, the depth, the way it tasted alive in a way that butter from a package doesn't. I realized somewhere in that first bite that the ciabatta was only there as a conduit. The butter was the whole point. I could have eaten it straight and been completely satisfied. That's what butter is supposed to taste like. Most of us have just never had it fresh. Nothing went to waste. That's the part that stays with me. The buttermilk went into a creamy batch. Brown sugar, salted caramel, coconut milk, a pinch of salt. Tangy, creamy, fermented dessert from what most people would pour down the drain. The remaining cream became half and half for the week's coffee. Next week, the buttermilk goes into banana bread made with butter I made myself. One purchase decision branched into cultured butter, fresh buttermilk, half and half ice cream, and eventually banana bread. Everything in my kitchen does double or triple duty. This fit perfectly. I spent roughly what I would have spent anyway. I just spent it differently and got significantly more out of it, circling back to where this started. The compound butter. Once you have cultured butter this good, the compound possibilities are different. You're not dressing up something mediocre. You're building on something that already has depth. Garlic and rosemary for a cast iron chicken, lemon thyme for fish and roasted vegetables, za'atar for anything Mediterranean. The formula is simple: softened butter, fresh herbs, a clove of garlic, citrus zest if it fits. Mix with a fork, roll into a log and parchment. Slice off what you need through the week. The base makes the compound. The compound elevates the meal. The meal started with a store that didn't have what I was looking for. That's compounding interest. One smart move that keeps paying out all week. One ingredient becomes 5 things. One question becomes a whole week's kitchen. But not every ingredient is hiding in the dairy aisle. Some of the best ones are buried under a name you've never heard. And the name changes everything. Track 3. Greatest raw of all time. I love sports. Any sport. The competition, the strategy, the moment when the underdog does the thing nobody saw coming. And I love the analytics almost as much as the game itself. The numbers behind the numbers. The way data tells a story that the scoreboard doesn't. So when I was researching oats, really digging into what makes one type different from another, I came across a word I'd never seen before: groat. A groat is the whole, unprocessed oat kernel, the thing before it becomes anything else, before it gets rolled, before it gets cut, before it gets pre-cooked and dried and turned into something you pour from a packet in 90 seconds. The groat is where oats start. I saw that word and went straight to Tom Brady. GOAT. Greatest of all time. And then I thought, wait, can I make something out of this? Greatest raw of all time. GROAT. The wordplay came first. The education followed. And what I learned changed how I buy oats entirely. I had been buying oats without really understanding what I was buying. Old-fashioned. Steel cut. Instant. I knew the names. I didn't know what they meant. And more importantly, I didn't know that the differences between them actually matter. They all start as the same thing: the groat. The whole kernel, harvested, cleaned, with the inedible outer hull removed. Everything after that is processing. And the more processing, the faster the oat cooks, and the faster it breaks down in your body. Steel-cut oats are groats that have been chopped into pieces with a steel blade. They're the least processed version most people will find at a grocery store. They take longer to cook, 20 to 30 minutes on the stovetop, but they hold their structure, digest slowly, and keep your blood sugar steady for hours. The fiber is intact. The nutrition is close to the original. Old-fashioned rolled oats are groats that have been steamed and then flattened with rollers. Still whole grain. Still good. They cook in about 5 minutes because the structure has been opened up, but the nutritional value is largely preserved. This is the version that works for overnight oats. You don't even need heat. You soak them, and by morning they've done the work themselves. Instant oats are pre-cooked, dried, and rolled thin. They're convenient, and they're not terrible, but the processing means they digest faster. The blood sugar response is quicker. And if there's flavoring added, you're often looking at added sugar on top of everything else. The further you get from the groat, the faster the oat. Faster isn't always better. The fiber in oats, specifically a type called beta-glucan, is one of the most well-researched nutrients in food science. It supports heart health, helps manage blood sugar, and feeds the good bacteria in your gut. That's a GAP trifecta: gut health, anti-inflammatory, and a food your body genuinely knows what to do with. But that fiber does its best work when the oat is as close to whole as possible. Steel cut first, old-fashioned second. Instant when you need it, and you're not adding a flavored packet to it. The groat is the original. Everything else is a version of it. Some versions better than others, all of them further from the source. Overnight oats are old-fashioned rolled oats in a jar. Oat milk or almond milk. Chia seeds. Whatever fruit or nut butter fits the week. No cooking. The oats soak overnight, and by morning they're creamy and ready. It's the version that asks the least of you and still delivers. Steel cut go in when I have time and want something warm. Stovetop, low and slow, finished with whatever's in the cabinet. The texture is different, chewier, more substantial, and the way they sit with you through the morning is noticeably different from instant. The groat didn't teach me a new diet. It taught me a spectrum. And once you understand where something sits on that spectrum, the choice gets a lot simpler. Greatest raw of all time. Tom Brady would approve. The further you get from the original, the faster it burns through you. That's true for oats. It's true for most things. And it's especially true for the thing in your mug, the one you've been treating like a ritual when it was always a meal. Track 4. Coffee is a food. For years, my morning routine was the same. Wake up, make coffee, drink it on an empty stomach, and call that breakfast. I wasn't hungry, or I told myself I wasn't, and the caffeine gave me enough energy to push through until lunch. Except it didn't. Not really. By 10 a.m. I was jittery. By 11 I was starving and making bad decisions, grabbing whatever was closest, eating too fast, feeling worse afterward. The coffee wasn't fueling my morning. It was borrowing from it. A sharp spike of energy followed by a crash that I'd been blaming on everything except the empty stomach I started with. Then someone told me to put protein in the coffee. I thought that sounded terrible. Caffeine on an empty stomach hits your bloodstream fast. That's why it feels so immediate. The energy, the focus, the slight edge of alertness. But without food in your system to slow the absorption, it also spikes your cortisol, which is why the jitters follow and why the crash at mid-morning feels so steep. Protein slows everything down. When you add protein to your coffee, collagen, whey, a blended egg, whatever form you prefer, you're giving your stomach something to work through. The caffeine still absorbs, but at a steadier rate. The spike flattens into a plateau. You get the focus without the shaking hands. The energy lasts longer because it wasn't all front-loaded into the first 20 minutes. It's not a hack. It's just physics. Your stomach processes caffeine differently when there's food in the way. The first time I tried adding collagen powder to hot coffee, I got a mug full of lumps floating in brown liquid. It looked terrible. It tasted worse. Here's what I learned. You can't dump protein powder into boiling liquid. The heat denatures the protein on contact, and it seizes into clumps before it has a chance to dissolve. The fix is simple. Mix the protein with a small splash of cool water first, just enough to make a paste. Stir it smooth. Then pour the hot coffee over it slowly while whisking. The paste dissolves evenly, and you get a smooth, slightly creamy cup with no lumps. Or use cold brew. Protein powder dissolves into cold brew without any fuss. No paste step needed. Just shake it in a jar with ice and you're done. This became my summer default. While I was figuring this out, I also looked at what most people are actually putting in their coffee. The flavored creamers, the non-dairy substitutes, the things in the grocery aisle that say French vanilla or caramel macchiato on the label. Most of them are seed oils and sugar. That's it. That's what's in the bottle. They exist to make coffee taste like dessert, And they do it with ingredients that spike your blood sugar and promote inflammation before 8 a.m. I'm not saying black coffee or nothing. I'm saying there are better things to put in the mug. Collagen dissolves completely and adds no flavor. It disappears into the cup and brings amino acids, particularly glycine, that support gut health. You'd never know it was there except that your mid-morning feels different. A whole egg blended into hot coffee sounds strange until you try it. It creates a frothy, rich, almost latte-like foam that's more satisfying than any creamer. It's protein and fat in a form your body immediately knows what to do with. Scandinavian coffee traditions have been doing this for generations. Grass-fed butter or ghee blended in gives you the fat that slows caffeine absorption even further. It makes the coffee taste rounder, fuller, less acidic. The fat smooths the bitter edges the way cream does, but without the inflammatory baggage of most commercial dairy. This is the shift that changed my whole approach. Coffee has over 800 aromatic compounds. It shares flavor territory with dark chocolate, roasted nuts, tobacco, and caramel. It's complex, bitter, and deep. We've been trained to treat it like a dessert vehicle. Dump sugar in it, make it taste like a cookie, mask the bitterness with sweetness. But coffee doesn't need sweetness. It needs partnership. A pinch of cinnamon helps stabilize blood sugar and adds warmth without sugar. A tiny pinch of sea salt, barely enough to taste, cuts the bitterness more effectively than sugar ever did. Cacao powder turns the cup into something that tastes like a mocha, but is actually just antioxidants and fat. Once I stopped trying to make coffee taste sweet and started treating it like the dark, complex, savory thing it actually is, the whole morning changed. The cup became a meal. The meal carried me to lunch without a crash, a craving, or a trip back to the kitchen. Hot coffee. A scoop of collagen dissolved into a cool water paste first, then stirred in. A splash of coconut milk. A pinch of cinnamon. Sometimes cacao powder if I want it to feel like more. It takes 3 minutes. It keeps me steady until noon. And I don't skip breakfast anymore. I just drink it. That's EP8, The Morning Show. 4 tracks, 1 morning. The matcha that works best when you stop performing it and just drink it. The butter that started with an empty shelf and turned into a whole week's kitchen. The oat that's been sitting in a spectrum you never knew existed and works hardest the closer it is to the source. And the coffee that was never a ritual. It was always a meal. What you put in your body first thing in the morning sets the chemistry for everything that follows. Build it like it matters. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours. Thank you for spending time with me. The Remixology app is where the remix continues. Recipes, swaps, and a little something new every Friday. Here's to health, happiness, and a remix that's uniquely yours.